Before everyone says I ruined my own marriage, please listen. Yes, I was drunk. Yes, I told my husband he should recreate my ex's best moments. And yes, I listed them, one by one, in excruciating detail. But I didn't mean it literally. I didn't mean to compare them like some kind of performance review. I didn't expect him to get dressed, leave the house, and spend the entire night away. And I definitely didn't expect him to call a lawyer at 8 a.m. I'm sitting on the bathroom floor right now, mascara smeared down my cheeks in ugly black streaks, holding my phone with shaking hands, staring at his message for what must be the 100th time. The screen is cracked slightly in the corner from when I dropped it earlier in my panic. The notification light blinks mockingly at me. Don't wait up. We'll talk when the paperwork is ready. My stomach flips every time I read it. Paperwork. What paperwork? Divorce paperwork, separation agreements, legal documents that will officially end everything we built together. Is he really that serious? Over one drunk night? Over words I barely remember saying but that apparently carved themselves into his memory forever? But I do remember. That's the worst part. I remember enough to know I messed up. I remember the look on his face when I said it. I remember the silence that followed. I remember thinking, in my drunk stupidity, that silence meant I'd won some kind of argument. I just didn't think it would cost me everything. I didn't think words could destroy a marriage in a single evening. Aren't marriages supposed to be stronger than that? Aren't we supposed to survive fights and mistakes and stupid drunken rants? Apparently not. Apparently there are some things you can't take back, no matter how much you wish you could. Let me explain how we got here. Let me tell you my side before you judge me completely, because I know you're already judging. I can feel it through the screen, through whatever device you're reading this on. You're thinking I'm a terrible person, a horrible wife, someone who deserves everything that's happening to me. And maybe you're right. But at least let me tell you how it happened before you make up your mind completely. It started as a normal Friday evening. Actually, it started as a really nice Friday evening, the kind we hadn't had in months. He'd gotten home early from work, which almost never happens anymore. Usually he's stuck at the office until 7 or 8, dealing with whatever crisis his boss has manufactured that day. But today he walked through the door at 5:30, and he was in a good mood. Actually smiling. Actually asking about my day instead of just grunting and heading straight for the couch like he'd been doing lately. We decided to order takeout from that Thai place we used to love but hadn't been to in forever. He suggested it, which made me happy because it meant he was actually thinking about us, about things we used to enjoy together. Just the two of us, no plans, no pressure, no need to go anywhere or do anything. It was supposed to be relaxing. It was supposed to be nice. It was supposed to bring us closer together after weeks of feeling like we were just roommates who occasionally shared a bed. Here's the thing nobody's going to believe. I was already a little buzzed from happy hour with my co-workers earlier that afternoon. We'd gone to this new wine bar that had opened downtown, the kind of place with overpriced small plates and wines with names I couldn't pronounce. I'd had 3 glasses of this crisp white wine that went down way too easily. I probably should have mentioned that to my husband when I got home. I probably should have said, hey, I already had a few drinks, maybe I should slow down tonight, or maybe we should just have water with dinner. But I didn't, because it felt good to feel loose and happy and carefree for once. We'd been so stressed lately with work and bills, and his mother calling every other day with some new complaint, and my job constantly threatening layoffs. This felt like finally letting go of all that tension. This felt like finally being able to breathe without worrying about everything else. So, when he opened that first bottle of wine at dinner, a nice red he'd been saving for a special occasion, though I didn't ask what made tonight special. I was already 3 drinks in from earlier, but I didn't tell him that. And I definitely didn't slow down. I matched him glass for glass, except he was starting from sober and I was starting from tipsy. By the time we finished eating our pad thai and green curry, I'd had 2 more glasses, 5 total drinks, maybe 6, I'd lost count. I'm not a big person. I'm 5'4" and weigh 120 pounds. 5 or 6 drinks is a lot for me, enough to push me well past tipsy into actually drunk. But in the moment, sitting at our dining table with the candles he'd lit and the music he'd put on, I felt great, giggly, flirty, bold, like the woman I used to be when we first started dating, before life got complicated and exhausting. He was being sweet that night, complimenting the salad I'd thrown together from whatever was left in our fridge, laughing at my stupid jokes that weren't even that funny. And I was feeling confident, too confident, apparently, that dangerous kind of drunk confidence where you think you're being profound and helpful when really you're just being an idiot. That's when I made my first mistake, the mistake that would cascade into a dozen more mistakes until everything was ruined. I said, "You know what? You're being really sweet tonight. It reminds me of..." I should have stopped there. I should have said, "It reminds me of when we first started dating," or "It reminds me why I married you," or "It reminds me why I fell in love with you," or literally anything else that wasn't what came out of my mouth next. But drunk me had a different idea. Drunk me thought it would be helpful, constructive even, to share this observation. "It reminds me of this thing my ex used to do." The air changed immediately. I felt it, but I was too far gone to care, too drunk to recognize the danger. He went very still, his fork halfway to his mouth with a piece of spring roll on it, and just looked at me. Really looked at me. The kind of look you give someone when they've just said something so incomprehensible that you need a moment to process whether you heard it correctly. "Your ex," he repeated flatly, his voice carefully neutral in that way that should have been a massive warning sign. "Yeah," I said, not picking up on the warning signs at all, bulldozing right through his obvious discomfort. He used to do this thing where he'd randomly plan these surprise evenings, you know? No warning, just boom. Here's dinner and wine and attention. It was really sweet. You're doing the same thing tonight, and it's nice." My husband put his fork down slowly, deliberately, like he was concentrating very hard on the simple action of placing silverware on a plate. "I'm literally doing that right now." "I know," I said enthusiastically, completely missing his tone, completely missing the tension radiating from his body. "That's why it reminded me of him. It's nice. You should do it more often. Like, this is good. This is what we need more of." He didn't respond. He just picked up his wine glass and took a long drink, his jaw tight, his knuckles white where they gripped the stem. He was probably counting to 10 in his head, trying to decide whether to call me out on what I'd just said or let it go. Any sober person would have recognized that as a sign to shut up and change the subject immediately. Any sober person would have seen the storm brewing in his eyes and backed away from the cliff edge they were dancing on. But I wasn't sober. I was drunk and stupid and apparently determined to destroy my own happiness by saying every terrible thought that crossed my mind. "Actually," I continued, because apparently I have absolutely no self-preservation instincts when I'm drunk, there were a lot of things he did that were really good, like relationship things, romantic things, things that really worked. And I've been thinking about it lately, and I think it might be helpful for you to know about them, like as reference points or whatever." "I don't want to hear about your ex," my husband said quietly, his voice tight with barely controlled emotion. No, hear me out," I insisted, leaning forward across the table, my wine sloshing dangerously in my glass. "I'm not saying this to be mean or hurtful. I'm saying it because you could learn from it, because we could be better, because maybe if you understood what worked before, you could apply those lessons to us. Right? That makes sense, doesn't it? It's like taking the best parts of past experiences and using them to improve the present." I said I don't want to hear it. His voice was harder now, sharper, with an edge that should have cut through even my drunken haze. But drunk me interpreted that as defensiveness rather than the clear boundary it actually was. "See, this is what I mean," I said, gesturing with my wine glass and nearly spilling it. You get defensive instead of just listening. He would have listened. He would have wanted to know how to be better. My husband stared at me for a long moment. I couldn't read his expression. Later, I would realize it was the exact moment something broke inside him. But at the time, I thought he was just being stubborn. "Fine," he said, his voice eerily calm. "Tell me, what did your ex do that was so great? What are these best moments I should apparently be recreating?" I should have recognized the trap. I should have heard the ice in his voice and backed off. But I was drunk and stupid, and I thought he was genuinely asking. I thought this was my chance to finally tell him what I needed, to explain what was missing, to help him understand. So I told him. I told him everything. "Okay, so his best moments," I started, and I watched my husband's face go completely blank. He was spontaneous, like crazy spontaneous. He'd wake me up at midnight and say, "Get dressed, we're going on an adventure," and we'd just go, drive to the beach, climb a mountain, whatever. You never do that. You plan everything weeks in advance. My husband nodded slowly. "Okay. What else?" He was confident, like really confident, in bed and out of it. He knew what he wanted and he just took it. "You're always so careful, so worried about doing the right thing. Sometimes I just want you to be more aggressive, you know?" I was on a roll now, too drunk to notice my husband's knuckles turning white as he gripped his wine glass. And he was unpredictable. I never knew what he was going to do next. It was exciting. With you, everything is routine. Same schedule, same habits, same everything. It's boring. He was never boring. Anything else? My husband's voice was so quiet, I almost didn't hear him. Yeah, actually, he was really good at making me feel wanted. Like, really wanted. He'd look at me like I was the only person in the world. He'd touch me in public, pull me close, show everyone I was his. "You barely touch me anymore unless we're alone. Sometimes I feel like you're embarrassed to be with me." I laughed, like this was all just friendly advice, like I was being helpful. But the biggest thing, I continued, was passion. He had this intensity about everything. When he loved hard. When he wanted something, he went after it. "You're so measured about everything. So controlled. Sometimes I just want you to lose control, you know? To really want me so much you can't help yourself." I sat back, pleased with myself, thinking I'd just given him a roadmap to being a better husband. He stared at me for what felt like forever. Then he said, very calmly, "So, basically, everything about him was better than everything about me." "No," I protested. "That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you could learn from his best moments. Take what worked and apply it to us. Make our relationship more exciting." "By being more like your ex." "By being more alive," I corrected. "You're so safe, so predictable. I loved him because he was dangerous. I married you because you were safe. But sometimes I miss the danger." The words hung in the air between us. I realized, even through my drunken haze, that I'd said something bad. Something really bad. My husband stood up slowly. He pulled his phone from his pocket, checked the time, then grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice suddenly small. He didn't answer. He just walked to the door. "Babe, come on. Don't be like this. I was just trying to help." He paused with his hand on the doorknob. For a second, I thought he was going to turn around and yell at me. I almost wanted him to. Yelling I could handle. Yelling meant he still cared enough to fight. But he didn't yell. He didn't even look at me. He just opened the door and walked out. I heard his car start. I heard him drive away. And I sat there at our dining table, surrounded by the remains of our nice dinner, with half a bottle of wine left, and I thought, he'll cool off. He'll drive around for an hour, clear his head, and come back. We'll talk about it. I'll apologize. It'll be fine. So I finished the wine. All of it. And I stumbled to the couch and passed out, watching some reality TV show, convinced that when I woke up, he'd be there and we'd laugh about this, and everything would be okay. I woke up at 8:02 a.m. to my phone buzzing. A text from my husband. "Don't wait up. We'll talk when the paperwork is ready." I stared at it, confused. Paperwork? What paperwork? Was he picking something up from his office? Was this about our taxes or something? I texted back, "What paperwork? Where are you?" The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, "Check my location." I opened our shared location app, the one we used to make sure we both got home safe when we were out, the one that was supposed to be for safety and convenience. His dot was downtown, in the legal district, at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning. And then it hit me. He'd called a lawyer. He'd spent the entire night away from home. And at 8 a.m., he was meeting with a divorce attorney. Over one drunk conversation. I called him immediately. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. Again, voicemail. I sent a flurry of texts. "Please tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing." It was just drunk talk. I didn't mean any of it. "Please come home. We need to talk about this. I love you, not him, you. Please don't do this over one stupid night." Nothing. No response. I stumbled to the bedroom, head pounding from the hangover, heart pounding from panic. I needed to get dressed. I needed to go find him. I needed to fix this before it was too late. That's when I noticed the closet. Half his clothes were gone. Not packed in a suitcase. Actually gone. He must have come back while I was passed out drunk on the couch. He must have quietly packed his things and left, and I'd been too drunk to even notice. His side of the closet looked like a mouth with missing teeth. Gaps where his favorite shirts used to hang. Empty spaces where his shoes should be. I checked the dresser. His drawers were half empty. I checked the bathroom. His toothbrush was gone. His deodorant. His cologne. He'd taken everything he needed to be gone for more than just one night. I ran to his nightstand and pulled open the drawer. The small wooden ring holder he kept there was empty. He'd taken his wedding ring. That's when I really started to panic. That's when I collapsed onto the bathroom floor and just started crying. Because people don't take their wedding rings off over a fight. They take them off when they're done. I don't know how long I sat there. An hour? 2? Time felt weird and stretched out, and I couldn't make my brain work properly. I kept replaying the conversation from the night before, trying to remember exactly what I'd said, trying to figure out if it was as bad as it seemed. It was worse, because I'd meant it, at least partially. Drunk words are sober thoughts, right? Isn't that what they say? And if I was honest with myself, I'd been thinking those things for a while. I had been comparing him to my ex. I had been feeling bored with our routine. I had been missing the excitement and unpredictability of my previous relationship, but I hadn't meant to say it out loud. I hadn't meant to hurt him, and I definitely hadn't meant to blow up my entire marriage. My phone rang. Finally. I grabbed it, desperate, but it wasn't my husband. It was his sister. "What did you do?" she demanded before I could even say hello. We had a fight," I stammered. "A fight?" Her voice was sharp. "He called me at 2 a.m. Do you know what that means? He never calls that late unless it's an emergency. And he was... I've never heard him sound like that. What did you say to him?" "I was drunk. I said some stupid things, but it wasn't..." "He told me you spent the entire evening listing all the ways your ex was better than him. That you told him to recreate your ex's best moments because he's too boring and safe and predictable." Hearing it repeated back to me made it sound so much worse. "It wasn't like that," I protested weakly. "Then what was it like?" she demanded. "Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you spent your entire evening comparing your husband to your ex-boyfriend and finding your husband lacking. Would you like it if he spent an evening telling you how much better his ex-girlfriend was at everything?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. "That's what I thought," she said coldly. "He's my brother, and he's one of the best men I know. He's kind and loyal, and he's worked his tail off to give you a stable, comfortable life. And you repaid him by telling him he's boring and you wish he was more like your ex. What did you think was going to happen? I didn't think. No, you didn't think. You just drank too much and said everything you've apparently been thinking for God knows how long. And now he's meeting with a lawyer because he's convinced you don't actually love him. You just settled for him because your exciting ex didn't want to marry you. That last part hit like a slap, because it wasn't true. I had loved my ex, but I'd left him. I'd chosen my husband. I'd chosen stability and kindness and partnership over drama and passion, hadn't I? I need to talk to him, I said desperately. Please, can you tell him to call me? He doesn't want to talk to you right now. He's hurt, really hurt, and honestly, I don't blame him. She hung up. I tried texting my husband again. Still no response. I tried calling. Voicemail. I sent a long, rambling apology text explaining that I was drunk, that I didn't mean it, that I loved him, that I wanted to fix this. I hit send and watched the delivered status appear, but it never changed to read. Hours passed. I paced the apartment like a caged animal, unable to sit still, unable to think about anything except the disaster I'd created. I cleaned up from dinner, washing dishes with shaking hands, scrubbing at imaginary stains on plates that were already clean, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind from spiraling completely out of control. I found the empty wine bottles in the recycling, 2 of them, both drained completely, and felt sick looking at them. Physical evidence of my stupidity. Proof that I'd done this to myself, to us, to everything we'd built together. The apartment felt enormous and empty without him. Every room echoed. Every surface reminded me of him. His book on the nightstand, his jacket on the back of the chair, his favorite mug in the dish drainer. Evidence of a life we'd been building together, now potentially destroyed by my drunken inability to keep my thoughts to myself. By evening, I was a complete wreck. I'd gone from hungover to anxious to full-on panicking, my chest tight, my breath coming in short gasps, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold my phone. My husband had been gone for over 24 hours. 24 hours of silence. 24 hours of not knowing where he was sleeping, what he was thinking, whether he was coming back. He wasn't responding to any of my messages, and I'd sent dozens, each one more desperate and pathetic than the last. His sister had made it abundantly clear whose side she was on, and I was alone in our apartment with the growing, suffocating realization that I might have destroyed my marriage in one drunken evening of spectacular stupidity. My friends were divided when I reached out to them, desperate for someone, anyone, to tell me it would be okay, that I was overreacting, that he'd come back and we'd work it out like adults. I needed someone to reassure me that marriages don't end over one fight, that people forgive each other for saying terrible things when they're drunk, that love is stronger than words. Sarah texted back within minutes. Girl, it was just drunk talk. Men can be so sensitive sometimes. He'll get over it once he cools down and realizes you didn't mean it. But Emma, who'd known me longer and knew me better, replied with something much more uncomfortable. I love you, but you don't say that stuff even when you're drunk. There's usually some truth in drunk words. Did you actually mean it? Have you been feeling this way for a while? I stared at her message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the keyboard, unable to formulate a response. Because I didn't know how to answer that question. Had I meant it? Was there truth in what I'd said? Had I been unconsciously comparing him to my ex for months, harboring resentment, wishing he was different? I didn't know anymore. I didn't trust my own memory, my own motivations, my own feelings. And my best friend Kate just sent, "You need to give him space and figure out why you said what you said. This is deeper than just being drunk." She was right, but I didn't want to admit it. At 7 p.m., I heard a key in the lock. My heart leaped painfully in my chest, hope flooding through me so intensely it made me dizzy. He was home. Finally. We could talk. I could apologize properly, get down on my knees and beg if I had to. We could fix this. People fix things, didn't they? People forgave each other for mistakes. That's what marriage was supposed to be about. Weathering storms together, forgiving each other's failures, choosing each other again and again, even when it was hard. The door opened and he walked in, but something was immediately terribly different. He wasn't using his key the way he normally did, the way someone does when they're coming home to their own house. He'd knocked first, knocked on the door of his own apartment, and then used the key when I didn't answer fast enough, my feet frozen to the floor in shock. He was entering like a guest, like a stranger with courtesy access, like this wasn't his home anymore, like he was already gone and just returning to collect the last pieces of a life he'd decided to leave behind. He was carrying a folder, a manila folder, the kind lawyers use, professional and official-looking and terrifying in its mundane normalcy. "You came back," I said, relief and terror competing for dominance in my voice. "I'm so sorry. I was so drunk and I said terrible things and I didn't mean any of it. Please, can we just sit down and talk about this like adults? Can we—" He held up his hand, stopping me mid-sentence, and the gesture was so final, so dismissive, that it took my breath away. Then he walked to the dining table, the same table where just 24 hours earlier we'd been having what I thought was a nice dinner, and set down the folder with a soft thud that sounded like a gunshot in the silent apartment. "I'm not here to talk," he said quietly, his voice flat and emotionless, in a way that frightened me more than yelling would have. "I'm here to give you these." He opened the folder with steady hands, not shaking, not hesitating, just calm and determined, and pulled out a stack of papers. Even from across the room, even with my vision blurry from unshed tears, I could see the header printed in official-looking font at the top. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Divorce papers. He'd actually done it. He'd actually gone to a lawyer and filed paperwork to end our marriage. Over one drunk conversation. Over words I'd already apologized for. Words I'd tried to explain. Words that had tumbled out in a moment of wine-soaked stupidity. "No," I whispered, the word barely making it past the lump in my throat. "No, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can talk to someone, work through this together. Please don't—" "I've been thinking all night and all day," he said, his voice eerily calm, controlled in a way that suggested he'd rehearsed this speech, practiced exactly what he was going to say so he wouldn't lose his composure. "And I realized something important. What you said last night, that wasn't just drunk talk, that was how you really feel. Maybe you wouldn't have said it sober, maybe you would have kept it locked inside and let it poison us slowly instead of all at once. But you were thinking it. You've probably been thinking it for a long time. Drunk, you just finally said out loud what sober you has been feeling for months." "That's not true," I started, but even as I said it, I wasn't sure. Was it true? Had I been feeling that way? Had some part of me been comparing him to my ex all this time, keeping score, finding him lacking? "You said I'm boring," he continued, his voice perfectly level, each word carefully enunciated like he was reading from a script he'd memorized. "Predictable, too safe, too careful. You said you missed the danger of your ex. You said you wished I was more like him. You literally listed all his best moments and told me to recreate them because apparently everything he did was better than everything I do. You compared us point by point like you were reviewing products on Amazon, and I came out with 1 star to his 5. I was crying now, full-on sobbing, tears streaming down my face and dripping off my chin, but he just kept talking, his expression never changing, never showing any of the emotion that must have been churning inside him. "Do you know what I did last night?" he asked, but it wasn't really a question. "After I left here, after you finished your detailed presentation on why your ex-boyfriend was superior to me in every measurable way, I drove around for hours, 6 hours actually. I drove to the overlook where I proposed to you, remember that spot, where I got down on one knee and told you that you were the love of my life, that I wanted to spend forever with you. And I sat there trying to figure out where I went wrong, trying to figure out when I became not enough for you, trying to pinpoint the exact moment when the man you married turned into a disappointment. You didn't. I tried again, but he wasn't listening. He was somewhere else, somewhere in the painful memories of the past 24 hours. And then I started looking through things, old messages, texts between us, your social media posts. You know what I found? He pulled out his phone with the precision of a prosecutor presenting evidence. 6 months ago, you posted on Facebook about missing spontaneous adventures. I didn't think much of it at the time. 4 months ago, you told your friend Emma in a text message that you were bored with your life. 3 months ago, you saved an Instagram post about signs you settled in your relationship. I saw it in your saved folder when you handed me your phone to look at something else. Last month alone, you liked 3 different TikToks about when your ex did it better. 3. In 1 month. I'd forgotten about all of that. Random posts and likes and saved images that seemed meaningless at the time, just scrolling through social media while bored, just relating to something I saw, just a moment of passing thought. But now, strung together like this, they painted a picture I couldn't deny. A picture of someone who was unhappy, who was romanticizing the past, who was slowly checking out of her marriage while her husband remained oblivious. And then, he continued, his fingers moving across his phone screen with practiced efficiency, I looked at your photo albums, the ones in your phone. You know how many photos you still have of your ex, of that relationship you claimed to be over? Hundreds, literally hundreds, saved in a hidden folder you thought I didn't know about, but I've seen you looking at your phone and quickly closing something when I walked by. I never said anything because I trusted you, because I thought it was just old memories you hadn't gotten around to deleting. But they're organized by date, by event, by trip. You've been curating your memories of him like a museum exhibit. I just never deleted them, I said weakly, my defense sounding pathetic even to my own ears. It doesn't mean anything. They're just old photos. Everyone keeps old photos. You kept them for a reason, he said flatly, his eyes meeting mine for the first time since he'd started talking, and the emptiness in them made me want to look away. You kept them because you look at them, because you compare, because some part of you wishes you were still living those best moments instead of stuck in a boring, predictable marriage with me, because some part of you thinks you made a mistake. That's not fair. What's not fair, he said, his voice finally showing some emotion, is spending 3 years married to someone who apparently thinks I'm a downgrade from her ex-boyfriend. What's not fair is working 50-hour weeks to provide stability while being told I'm too safe. What's not fair is planning thoughtful date nights and surprise dinners, and trying my best every single day, only to be told I'm boring and I need to learn from your ex's legendary moments. I had no defense. Every word he said was true. If your ex's best moments were so incredible, he said, pulling the divorce papers from the folder and setting them on the table. If he was so spontaneous and dangerous and passionate and confident, then maybe you should go back to him. Maybe you should relive all those amazing memories instead of wasting your time with someone as boring as me. I don't want him, I sobbed. I want you. No, he said quietly. You want me to be him. And I'm not. I'm never going to be. I'm the guy who makes steady money and plans ahead and builds a stable life. I'm the guy who comes home every night and has dinner ready and remembers to take out the trash. I'm boring. I'm predictable. I'm safe. That's who I am. I love who you are. You love the idea of who I could be if I was more like your ex. That's not the same thing. He pulled a pen from his pocket and set it next to the papers. I'm staying at my brother's. My lawyer will be in touch about dividing assets. The apartment is in my name, but you can stay here for 60 days while you figure out your next steps. That should be enough time. Please, I begged. Please don't do this. One conversation, one drunk night. That can't be enough to end a marriage. It's not one night, he said. It's every night you went to bed thinking about how much better things used to be with someone else. It's every time you looked at me and wished I was different. It's every comparison you made that I wasn't aware of. Last night, you just finally said out loud what you've been thinking for months, maybe years. He walked to the door. I followed him, grabbing his arm. I made a mistake, I said desperately. One mistake. Don't throw away everything we built over one mistake. He looked at my hand on his arm, then at my face. For the first time since he'd walked in, I saw real pain in his eyes. You didn't make one mistake, he said softly. You've been making the same mistake since the day you realized I wasn't exciting enough for you. Last night was just the first time you admitted it. He gently removed my hand from his arm and opened the door. Sign the papers, or don't. Either way, I'm done being compared to a ghost of your past. He walked out, the door closed behind him, and I was alone again, staring at divorce papers on my dining table, next to the spot where just 24 hours earlier we'd been having what I thought was a nice dinner. I sat down slowly and looked at the papers. Petition for dissolution of marriage, irreconcilable differences, division of assets, child custody, N.A., spousal support to be determined. This was real. This was actually happening. I picked up my phone and scrolled to my ex's number. I hadn't contacted him in 3 years, but it was still there, buried in my contacts. My husband was right about one thing. I'd kept it for a reason. I stared at the number for a long time, my thumb hovering over the call button. This is what everyone would expect me to do now, right? Run back to my ex, prove everyone right, confirm that I'd never really gotten over him. But I didn't call, not because I was strong, or because I'd had some great realization. I didn't call because I finally admitted something to myself that I'd been avoiding for years. My ex wasn't actually that great. The spontaneous adventures were actually him being flaky and unreliable. The confidence was actually arrogance and stubbornness. The passion was actually drama and volatility. The danger was actually instability and emotional manipulation. I hadn't left him because he was too exciting. I'd left him because he was exhausting. Because I never knew where I stood with him. Because every day was an emotional roller coaster, and I was tired of being dizzy. I'd chosen my husband specifically because he was stable and predictable and safe. Because he made me feel secure instead of anxious. Because I could breathe around him. So why had I spent the last few months romanticizing a relationship that had made me miserable? Because I'd forgotten what it was really like. I'd kept the highlight reel and discarded the reality. I'd remembered the exciting moments and forgotten the crying, the fighting, the uncertainty, the constant drama. And in the process, I'd devalued everything my husband had given me. Peace, stability, genuine kindness, consistent love. I'd taken the most precious things and called them boring. I sat at that table for hours, the divorce papers in front of me, finally understanding what I'd done. I hadn't just drunkenly compared my husband to my ex. I'd spent months or maybe years slowly dismantling my own marriage by focusing on what I thought was missing instead of what I actually had. I'd looked at social media posts of other people's seemingly perfect relationships and felt like mine was inadequate. I'd watched movies and TV shows that glorified passionate, chaotic love and felt like my calm, steady marriage was boring by comparison. I'd forgotten that real life isn't a highlight reel, that the spontaneous adventures people post about don't show the credit card debt or the fights or the impulsiveness that destroys plans and relationships. That passion often means instability. That excitement often means anxiety. My husband had given me everything I'd asked for when I left my ex. Consistency, loyalty, emotional safety, a partner who showed up every single day without drama or games or manipulation. And I'd complained that it was boring. But this realization came too late. The papers were on the table. My husband was gone. And no amount of understanding my own stupidity would bring him back. Because he was right, it wasn't just one drunk night. It was months of making him feel like he wasn't enough, of subtly communicating through likes and posts and comments to friends that I'd settled, that I was disappointed, that I wished he was different. He'd been watching me drift away, probably for a long time, and last night I'd finally confirmed his worst fear, that I'd never really chosen him. I'd just chosen to leave someone else. I picked up the pen, put it down, picked it up again. I didn't want to sign. Signing meant it was really over. Signing meant admitting defeat. Signing meant I'd destroyed my own life through sheer stupidity and selfishness. But not signing wouldn't change anything. He'd made up his mind. He'd already moved his stuff out. He'd already met with a lawyer. He'd already checked out emotionally. I'd pushed him there with 1,000 small cuts, every time I'd looked at my phone instead of engaging in conversation. Every time I'd sighed when he suggested another predictable date night. Every time I'd scrolled through old photos of my ex and felt a pang of longing for something that had never been as good as I remembered. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Your husband's mother just called me. What is going on? Please tell me you two are working this out." I didn't respond. How could I explain this to my mother? How could I tell her that I'd gotten drunk and systematically destroyed my marriage by telling my husband that everything about my ex was better? Another text, this time from Emma. "Are you okay? I'm worried about you." And Kate, "Call me when you're ready to talk." But I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to face the judgment, the "I told you so's," the disappointed looks, the realization that everyone had been watching me take my husband for granted and waiting for this inevitable moment. I looked at the papers again. My husband's signature was already there, neat and final at the bottom. He'd signed them at the lawyer's office. He'd made his decision without hesitation. I thought about calling him one more time, begging him to reconsider, promising I'd change, swearing I'd never compare him to anyone again. But what good would that do? He'd spent 24 hours thinking about this. He'd already moved out. He'd already made his decision. And most importantly, he was right. I couldn't promise to never compare him again, because the damage was already done. He'd spend the rest of our marriage wondering if I was secretly disappointed, wondering if I was still thinking about my ex, wondering if I really loved him or just loved the security he provided. That's no way to live, for either of us. So I picked up the pen. I looked at the line where my signature was supposed to go, and I started crying again because I finally understood. I'd had everything I needed, and I'd thrown it away because I was too stupid and selfish to recognize its value until it was gone. I signed the papers, not because I wanted to, but because he deserved better than someone who spent her time wishing he was someone else. I set the pen down and looked at my signature next to his, both of us agreeing to end what we'd promised to keep forever.